Okay, today we're going to be talking about congruent triangles. And if you remember back to when we were talking about vocabulary terms earlier on in the year, we said that congruence is when two things are exactly alike. They are equal in all ways, which means congruent figures have the exact same size and shape. So our little bookworm examples over here on the right, we see that the two bookworms at the top are congruent. They have exactly the same size and they have exactly the same shape. Whereas the two bookworms underneath are similar because they have the exact same shape, but they're not exactly the same size. They are proportional. So similar figures are proportional to one another. Congruent figures are exactly the same as one another in all ways, size and shape. So for this first example, we're going to identify all pairs of congruent corresponding parts. Which all that means is we need to figure out what sides in the first triangle match up with sides in the second triangle, and which angles in the first triangle match up with angles in the second triangle. So we'll start out by noting that side AC has one tick mark. So the side that has one tick mark in the second triangle is side FH. And we want to make sure we're going the same direction. So we started at angle A, which is where the 90-degree mark is. So we want to start at angle F, where the 90-degree mark is. Side AB has two tick marks. Side FG has two tick marks. So side AB is congruent to side FG. And again, we started at A, which is at the right angle. So we started at F, which is at the right angle. And then lastly, side CB has three tick marks. And side HG has three tick marks. So we went from angle C that has two marks in the angle to angle B, which has one mark in the angle. So we went from H, which has two marks, to G, which has one mark. So now that we know which sides correspond to one another, let's match up the angles that correspond to one another. So it's pretty obvious that angle A matches with angle F because they're both the 90-degree angles. And then angle C has two marks and angle H has two marks, so those match. Lastly, we have angle B with one mark and angle G with one mark. So those are congruent to one another. Now we need to write a congruence statement. We can put the first triangle in any order that we want. So we can say triangle ABC. The first triangle can be in any order that we want, but the second triangle has to match that order. So what do I mean by that? So angle A had the 90-degree mark, angle B had one tick mark, and angle C had two tick marks. So in the second triangle, we have to go from the 90-degree angle, which is F, to the one mark, which is G, to the two marks, which is at angle H. So if we say triangle ABC is congruent to triangle FGH, we can do that. For the second example, we're going to find the values of x and y. In order to do that, we need to figure out what corresponds to what. So let's go through. We are told that DEFG is congruent to SPQR. So that means that D is congruent to S. E is congruent to P. F is congruent to Q. And G is congruent to R. It also means that side DE is congruent to side SP. Side EF is congruent to side PQ. Side FG is congruent to side QR. And side GD is congruent to side RS. So now that we know which angles correspond to which angles and which sides correspond to which sides, we can set up the appropriate equations. So we're trying to find the value of x. X is noted up here on side QR. And side QR, we said, is congruent to side FG. So that means that 2x minus 4 is equal to 12 feet. So now we have to solve. X is equal to 8. And the reason we were able to set that up is because we looked at our congruent statement. The congruent statement was given to us. So we know that the order has to match. And from the congruent statement, we saw that QR matches with FG. They're in the same positions in the statement. So that means we can set them equal to one another and solve. Now solving for y, that's in angle Q, and it's 6y plus x is equal to, well, angle Q is equal to angle F, and angle F is 68 degrees. Now, we can go ahead and plug in the 8 that we determined was the value of x. We already solved for x. So we've got 6y plus 8 is equal to 68. So now we have 6y is equal to 60. Divide both sides by 6. Y is equal to 10. Okay, now we're going to practice writing a congruence statement, okay? The order matters when we're writing a congruence statement. The first one we're going to do is pick a marked angle. Or we're going to have to mark two angles congruent to one another based on other information that we are given. Then we're going to name the first triangle in any order. Once we have the first triangle named, we have to match that order in the second triangle. So let's try this. On the first one, we have angle R with 1 tick mark, angle K with 2 tick marks, and angle O with no tick marks. So we can name this triangle RKO. If we name it triangle RKO, then the second triangle we have to go in the same order. So we went from 1 to 2 to no marks. So we have to go from 1 to 2 to no marks. So if we named it like this, it would have to be triangle DME. We could have had a different order for the first triangle, but if we used a different order for the first triangle, we have to match that order in the second triangle. So let's try another one. Okay, for this next example, we see that we have 3 pairs of congruent sides marked. So we just need to write our congruent statement. Now, we can go with whatever order we want for the first one. So I've decided to go down the 1 tick mark side, then down the 2 tick mark side. So I end up with triangle ZWB is congruent to triangle CPS. So I went down the 1 tick mark side, then down the 2 tick mark side. For the next one, we have to figure out which order is correct. So with choice A, if we go MYJ, we went down the blank side, up the 2 tick mark side. So we'd have to go down the blank side, up the 2 tick mark side. That would be TRH, which is not what we have. So that's not correct. Okay, for this choice down here, we would have JYM. So that's going down the 2 tick mark side, up the blank side. So down the 2 side, up the blank side would be HRT, which is not what we have. So that's not correct either. So MYJ is blank, then 2 side. So blank, then 2 tick mark side, which would be TRH. That's not what's there. So let's hope the last one that we need to check works out. So we've got YJM. So 2 side, then 1 side would be RHT. And that is what we have. So this is correct. Okay, for number 4, we are told that these triangles are congruent. We just have to figure out the order in which they match up. And then we have to solve for x. So I'm just going to make this easy on myself, and I'm going to go 1 tick mark in the angle, then 2 tick marks in the angle, then blank. So BAC. So triangle BAC is congruent to triangle. So I want to go 1 to 2 to blank. So QSR. Now, that means that angle R is the same as angle C. So I can put a 5x here. And we know that the 3 angles in any triangle add up to 180 degrees. So we know that 45 plus 80 plus 5x equals 180 degrees. 45 plus 80 is 125. So 180 minus 125 is 55. Divide both sides by 5 to get that x is equal to 11.